on behalf of instructions that we have received from a petitioner whose name is Member Ocharo, on the basis of public interest and national security. The petition that we have filed before the High Court, a constitutional petition, touches on matters that involve terrorism and proceeds of terrorist acts. Now, the Director of Public Prosecutions by himself, through his office, and as the Director of Public Prosecution, one Mr. Noordin Haji, has developed interagency guidelines that are meant to give guidelines on the procedure on how to deal with terrorists and terrorist attacks here in Kenya. He gave these guidelines, which were published, and in the said guidelines, there is an allegation that all the criminal justice systems are coming together in a bid to curb terrorism, which is a national security threat here in our country, Kenya. Now, the funny thing, or the absurdity in these guidelines is that there was no involvement of the National Security Council. There was no involvement of the Director of Criminal Investigations, the body that is charged with conducting investigations in Kenya. There was no involvement of the National Police Service. These guidelines have been arbitrarily procured by the Director of Public Prosecutions. And what these guidelines are saying, that in the event there is a suspect or there is information relating to terrorist or terrorist activities, he should be notified prior to any arrest. So if we have a suicide bomber, or if we have someone who is trying to involve himself with terrorist activities, before the police can act, before the investigative bodies that have been mandated by the law to conduct the investigations, they must notify one Mr. Noordin Haji by himself. Not the office, not any other prosecutor, not any other personnel, but the director himself, namely one Mr. Noordin Haji. Now, what does this mean? This means that there's going to be slowness in how we are curbing terrorism. Every effort that has been made by key players in the criminal justice system is now going down the drain, because we have to wait for the approval of one Mr. Noordin Haji before any arrest is made, before investigations are made, and definitely before any criminal has been charged in court for terrorism acts. This is unconstitutional, this is unlawful, this is dangerous to our country. This country has been a hotbed for terrorist activities. We are still suffering the consequences of losing loved ones from the Westgate attack, from the bomb blast attack. Every single day, one of us is mourning the loss of a loved one that was unprovoked because of terrorism. Measures have been made, acts have been developed by Parliament in a bid to curb terrorism. However, the Director of Public Prosecution is now rubbishing all the acts of Parliament and any other guidelines, and even rubbishing the mandate of the DCI and the police, so that they cannot do any investigations without his authority and without his prior consent. This is a matter of public interest. It is a matter that touches national security. It should not be taken lightly. And we are looking at the court, which is also a key player in the criminal justice system, to try and see if the court is going to be able to use its inherent jurisdiction and is going to be able to give orders to the effect that these guidelines will not take place. We are praying in the petition for conservatory orders against these guidelines, because they go against every other thing that we are fighting for in this country. We are entering into the political system, into the election era, as a time when everyone is focusing on the leaders we are choosing for tomorrow. Therefore, terrorists may take this opportunity to find that we are not paying very much attention. Now, if this focus is moved from protecting this country and protecting the ordinary mwananchi to the effect that the Director of Public Prosecution must be consulted before any arrest is made against terrorist criminals, what does that then mean for Kenyans? Are we standing on our own? A terrorist not going to be prosecuted because of the protection of the Director of Public Prosecutor discriminatedly against every other crime that is happening here in Kenya. This is an issue that has to be taken with the utmost sensitivity and the utmost seriousness. It's not only touches on public interest, it is national security. We have to be careful, we have to put our eyes out open in the streets as ordinary citizens, and we are hoping that the court, the Honorable High Court, is going to also cover us and protect us by issuing conservatory orders against these guidelines that were arbitrarily construed by the Director of Public Prosecutions without the involvement of any other interagency. Why would you call guidelines interagency, yet you by yourself, you are formulating these guidelines for your own benefit or for the benefit of those of your kind, so that they may be protected, so that they may be afforded an opportunity to run away from the law or from the consequences of being on the wrong side of the law. Therefore, on behalf of the petitioner member Ocharo, we are appealing to the public to be very vigilant, because national security is now an issue that is of urgency and of utmost importance. Thank you.
We have seen a very excited DPP, Mr. Noordin Haji, guidelines aimed at achieving an end that is known to himself. So that in the recent past we have seen him develop guidelines that are aimed at controlling investigations and any action that the police or policemen will take as against any person who has been suspected or is being investigated for being involved in terrorism acts. So that it is now a guideline developed by his office that when the policemen are investigating anybody who is suspected to be involved or who is supposed to conduct any terrorism act, he must be informed prior to his arrest or prior to the investigations being taken. Number one, we do not know why or for what purpose Mr. Noordin Haji wants the investigating agencies to report to him before investigations are done on people who are involved in terrorism. Secondly, we do not know for what purpose he will want to be involved in investigations. It should be recalled that the office of the DPP is a creature of the Constitution. His powers are clearly enumerated in Article 157 of the Constitution. We do not know why he will go to the extent of arrogating to himself powers that are given to the investigating agencies, particularly when we read Article 245 of the Constitution. So that what we knew previously, because previously prosecution was conducted by police officers, but the engineers or the drafters of our Constitution thought that in order for us to have very objective prosecutions, we should not have a situation where the DPP or the public prosecutor is involved in investigations, because entirely what prosecution should achieve is a fair process. And to the extent that Mr. Noordin Haji will want to be involved in investigations, we read a lot of mischief. We see that he wants to be, there is something that he wants to achieve other than what he was mandated or is mandated to do. Kwa kifupi tunasema ya kwamba kuna madai yaliyoletwa kotini ya kwamba bwana Noordin Haji anajaribu kujihusisha na kujihusisha na uchunguzi ambao unafanywa na mapolisi wetu. Na kwa kauli moja jamaa anaitwa member Ocharo ambaye ameelekea kotini anasema ya kwamba jambo hilo ni jambo ambalo linakiuka sheria. Ni jambo la pili ambalo linaonyesha kwamba bwana Noordin Haji pengine anatamama na azimio ya kufanya mambo kinyume na katiba ili aweze pengine kufanikisha ajenda fulani ambayo sisi kama wananchi hatuijui. Asanteni.
Swala la ugaidi, terrorism. Wale magaidi wa terrorism ni watu ambao hawafuati sheria zozote. Wakenya wanakumbuka yaliyotendeka wakati magaidi walipolipua ile ambayo ilikuwa inaitwa American Embassy katika taifa la Kenya. Wakenya zaidi ya 200 waliangamia, wengine wana majeraha mpaka leo. Wakenya bado wanakumbuka yaliyokuwa yakitendeka wakati wa magaidi walipovamia Garissa University. Zaidi ya wanafunzi 300 na kadhalika waliaga dunia, na Wakenya wengi kupoteza fahamu, wengine majeraha walionayo mpaka sasa. Wakenya bado wanakumbuka yaliyotendeka pale Westgate, ambapo magaidi walivamia na kuharibu mali na kuua Wakenya wengi na raia wa nchi za ng'ambo waliokuwa huku. Mwisho, Wakenya wanakumbuka yaliyotendeka juzi katika mkahawa hoteli maarufu ya Dusit, ambapo mali na maisha yalipotea. Je, yale yaliyofanywa na kiongozi wa mashtaka ni kwamba sasa amesema kwamba kabla ya kumshika yule ambaye ni gaidi, lazima polisi wamjulishe yule jamaa, yule ambaye ni DPP, kwamba tumemwona yule gaidi, na yule gaidi anapanga kupiga bomu katika hii hoteli. Utatukubalia tumkamate ama tusimkamate? Gaidi anapoingia huchukua sekundi, hata sio dakika moja, kutekeleza aliyokuwa nayo. Sasa tunaambiwa lazima kiongozi wa mashtaka atafutwe, apewe ushahidi kabla ya kumshika ule gaidi. Basi hayo ndio mambo tunauliza, nini madhumuni yake hasa ya kufanya polisi wamngojee aweze kupeana idhini? Na kumbuka kwamba zaidi ya makesi 5,000 ziko kwenye ofisi zake ambazo mpaka sasa hajaziidhinisha. Polisi wanangojea idhinisho lake ndiposa aweze kushtaki. Kwa hivyo hayo ndio mambo tumezungumzia. Mahakama imetusikiza na imeona kwamba swala tuliloleta ni swala zito kwelikweli, na imesema kwamba tutasikizwa tarehe 10 mwezi wa 5. Kwa hivyo ni mambo ya dharura sana, sababu tisho la ugaidi ni tisho lisilokuwa tisho la Kenya peke yake, ni ulimwengu mzima. In the English language, we have gone to court simply to challenge the directives of the Director of Public Prosecution that he must approve on matters terrorism before the police can arrest, before the police can engage in combat with the terrorist. I have enumerated, for examples, one, when the terrorist attacked the American embassy, more than 200 Kenyans died and several foreigners plus property was lost and injuries today, and the trauma on those who are affected are real. 2, we had a similar attack at Garissa University and several students were killed, and that is still in the memory of Kenyans. 3rd, we had a similar attack at Westgate, and therefore every Kenyan knows what happened at Westgate. Lastly, the attack on Dusit was just the other day. So the question we have posed to the court is, under the guidelines, the police, the GSU, and the military, upon detection of an attack of terrorism, now the guidelines are they must go and seek authority from the Director of Public Prosecution that we have seen a terrorist walking like Mr. Omari somewhere with guns and grenades. Can we arrest? What we are telling the court is that terrorism is incidences that act in seconds. Any divulging of information of what the police have is not in the best interest of Kenyans. So we are seeking the court's intervention to stop one Noordin Haji from becoming a police officer. That every action the police must do, he must be informed for him to make a decision. Are Kenyans not being exposed with such a bureaucratic red tape in dealing with the questions of terrorism? Is that practice anywhere in the whole world? It is not anywhere in the whole world. Every country's major concern is how to avert terrorism. It is an overt exercise, and the terrorists never give. Not as a simple example, a terrorist is found to have grenades inside an aeroplane. Will the police wait not to act until they write a letter seeking authority to arrest a terrorist who who is already in a hotel or inside a KQ flight. It is practically not possible in the direction the state, the DPP has taken. That is why we have gone to court that this appetite of amassing power in that office is not in the interest of citizens of this country. We will not want a repeat of Westgate. We will not want a repeat of Dusit. We will not want a repeat of the US embassy bombing at the expense of an officer who is interested to bring bureaucracy where his job definition under Article 157 is purely to prosecute. Remember, very many of the terrorists, when they have come to attack, they are suicide bombers. 90% of the terrorists are suicide bombers. They have come to die with a promise that they will go to heaven and get 40 virgins. Is this the person you are going to seek authority to arrest? A person whose job is to die? Is it realistic? And that is what we are in court today. And the court has given us, certified the matter very urgent. We have been told to serve within 5 days. We have already served. The matter is coming up on the 10th of May when we are seeking for conservatory orders to suspend and revoke those directives because they are likely to hurt the citizens of this country. They are likely to hurt the international reputation and international diplomatic relations between other states and Kenya, because Kenya will be said it is anti the war of terrorism that is a global war that is being fought. Any question?
This means
the police is now like a department under the Director of Public Prosecution. They must get consent to do anything. They must ask him to do anything. Article 245 completely makes the National Police Service Commission independent and with clear investigation and police powers. Article 157 clearly says the DPP has powers absolute on prosecution. So we are seeing an encroachment that is continuously going towards eroding the independence of the police services. Remember, the police are supposed to be independent to do their investigation and take action. That is what we are seeing.
Before Haji ascended the office of the DPP, he was in the intelligence department. Are you asking the court to ask him?
Being the DPP on grounds of incompetence, on grounds of who has exhibited complete incompetence to run the office of the Director of Public Prosecution.